Live or die. When Yuan Cheng's faint words spread, the alliance leaders present at the meeting were momentarily stunned. I don't understand what you mean, said Wei Tiandi, the realm lord of the Guardian Realm, narrowing his eyes as he looked at Yuan Cheng. Please explain it in simpler terms, added the undying lord, the caretaker of the land of 10,000 graves. She did not believe Yuan Cheng was joking, given that this gathering was convened in the name of all four heavenly supreme powerhouses of the Great Thousand Alliance. I'm not well read, so don't trick me, said Lu Feng, the sword saint and domain lord of the sword region, with a hint of teasing. However, the alliance leaders had traveled across tens, or even hundreds of billions of miles to be here. If the Great Thousand Alliance had called them just to make jokes, that would indeed be outrageous. The leader of the Sacred Alliance exchanged a glance with his daughter and shrugged, indicating his own confusion. Meanwhile, Shui Yuan and Wu Wanlong from the Western Heaven Palace were equally baffled. On the side of the Divine Realm, Tang San was about to speak when Yu Xiaojiang stopped him. Yu Xiaojiang had noticed that Nan Tianzi, the leader of the Great Thousand Alliance, remained expressionless, as if Yuan Cheng's words were within his expectations. Could all the lower dimension alliances be facing a life-or-death decision? Yu Xiaojiang stepped forward and asked Yuan Cheng, I suppose today's meeting relates to the fusion of the two lower dimensions caused by that extraterritorial heavenly emperor? At the time, I wanted to investigate the fusion site to deduce the next steps, but a Divine Realm enforcer reported that the two fused lower dimensions were completely destroyed in that heavenly emperor's self-destruction. It was like erasing all evidence. Not only can we no longer discern the extraterritorial evil clan's intent or method for merging dimensions without rejection, but all clues have vanished. Yuan Cheng, are you basing this life-or-death choice on conjecture from this inconclusive event? Yu Xiaojiang's clear and analytical thinking earned silent praise from many present. Indeed, if the fused lower dimensions were destroyed, all traces would be irretrievable. I heard Yuan Cheng didn't even visit the fusion site. Without evidence, how can you deduce anything about the life and death of all lower dimension alliances? Wei Tianyi questioned Yuan Cheng. Hearing these remarks, Yuan Cheng simply smiled, waved his sleeve, and sat cross-legged on the cleaned stone slab. His calm voice spread across the hall. First, let me correct your misconceptions. 1. We don't need to investigate the fusion site. The only information we need is already known. 2 lower dimensions have fused. That's enough. 2. This discussion is not just about the safety of the lower dimensions, but also about the survival of the Great Thousand Worlds. What? The survival of the Great Thousand Worlds? Yuan Cheng's words sent a shock through the crowd. Yuan Cheng continued, while summoning you, I also reached out to the highest powers in the Great Thousand Worlds, including the Primordial Divine Clan, the Myriad Spirit Divine Clan, and the advanced clans like the Ice Spirit Clan and Fire Spirit Clan. But it seems they dismissed my warnings, so only you have come. This revelation infuriated many present. The arrogance stemming from the Great Thousand Worlds' victory in the ancient Extinction War still lingered. Such pride might one day lead to their downfall in the face of another attack from the extraterritorial evil clan. An attack potentially more devastating than the last Extinction War. Forget them, Yuan Cheng said. For all we know, they might be eavesdropping on our meeting from billions of miles away. The alliance leaders nodded in agreement. Given the terrifying foundation of clans like the Primordial Divine Clan, it wouldn't be surprising if they had means to listen in from such distances. To make things clearer and more credible, I need one Heavenly Supreme who isn't part of the Great Thousand Alliance to assist with a series of tasks, Yuan Cheng said. He then looked toward Nan Tianzi. Tianzi, help me select 4 people from the Great Thousand Alliance. Understood. The leader of the Great Thousand Alliance, Nan Tianzi, nodded and vanished, reappearing moments later with 4 figures. The gathered alliance leaders were momentarily stunned, puzzled by Yuan Cheng's actions. Why summon people who were clearly much weaker than them? Among the 4, the strongest was only at the heaven merging stage, while the others, at the spirit movement stage, spirit wheel stage, or even the divine soul stage, couldn't even fly. What's going on? Lu Feng asked, confusion evident on his face. The 4 summoned individuals trembled at the sight of the gathered leaders. Upon learning from Nan Tianzi that these were the leaders of various lower dimension alliances, their legs nearly gave out. Yuan Cheng, observing them from a distance, spoke, "Come here." The four exchanged glances, bewildered by Yuan Cheng's intent. Before they could react, their surroundings blurred, and they suddenly found themselves standing behind him. "Greetings." They knelt on one knee, fists cupped, but faltered mid-sentence. Unsure how to address the man before them, they hesitated. Yuan Cheng rarely appeared in the Great Thousand Alliance, and they could only address him as Senior. "Follow my instructions, and each of you will be rewarded with 1,000 drops of supreme spiritual liquid," Yuan Cheng stated. "Yes, Senior." These four weren't from the lower dimensions, but had joined the Great Thousand Alliance through a subordinate force. "How interesting. I'll play along and be the heavenly supreme you need." A cheerful voice rang out. Wei Tiandi's figure flashed, appearing a few hundred meters in front of Yuan Cheng. Smiling, he said, "Well, since this isn't a joke, tell us what earth-shattering matter you've gathered us for. I'm curious what a mere 3-heaven stage cultivator could possibly need from us." "Let's begin," said the Undying Lord, guardian of the land of 10,000 graves, as the tiny flame on his lamp flickered. "Drawn in as well, are you?" He chuckled, glancing at the flickering flame. His ancient eyes narrowed. Yuan Cheng's few words had transformed the atmosphere into one of mystery, gripping everyone with intense curiosity. Hovering midair, Wei Tiandi stood with hands clasped behind him, while the four behind Yuan Cheng trembled with excitement. They knew they were assisting a heavenly supreme in completing a mission. "Let's discuss the issue of spatial shackles," Yuan Cheng announced. "Spatial shackles? You mean dimensional shackles?" asked Shui Yuan, the 100 Battle Emperor. "There's a difference," Yuan Cheng explained. "Dimensional worlds are naturally formed, while spatial worlds are created by powerful beings through sheer force, bypassing natural formation. Although there are differences, my research shows that spatial worlds can possess everything dimensional worlds do, including barriers similar to dimensional shackles," Yu Xiaojiang interjected after a moment of thought. "Well said. But that's not the focus today," Yuan Cheng responded. "Have you ever wondered, if every lower dimension has shackles, could the Great Thousand World also have them? And if so, what lies beyond those shackles?" His words sent shockwaves through the room. Shackles of the Great Thousand World? The leaders were stunned, their minds reeling. "Are you suggesting the extraterritorial evil clan's fusion of 2 lower dimensions is linked to these shackles?" "Yuan Cheng, I have a question," Yu Xiaojiang said. "You're in the right place," Yuan Cheng grinned. "With your mind and eloquence, you'll be a great help today." "I won't lie. I've studied the Great Thousand World shackles," Yu Xiaojiang admitted, leaving the alliance leaders, including Tang San, in shock. They hadn't considered this possibility, yet Yuan Cheng wasn't the only one. The Great Thousand Worlds are unbound by constraints. Even if the Great Thousand Worlds were to be destroyed, no worlds beyond the lower dimensions or the extraterritorial worlds would appear, Yu Xiaojiang stated. His conclusion was, in fact, the very speculation everyone present had been considering. "And how do you see it?" Yuan Cheng smiled faintly and asked further. "Let's start with the structure of the 3 worlds," Yu Xiaojiang continued. "We know that the lower dimension is the lowest tier among the 3 worlds, while the other 2 are on equal footing. The reason the lower dimension is ranked lowest is undoubtedly due to its fragmented, bubble-like nature. Essentially, it consists of countless smaller worlds, and its strength has been diminished manifold." As he spoke, Yu Xiaojiang suddenly paused, struck by a terrifying thought. His heart pounded as the idea exploded within him. The extraterritorial evil clan is fusing 2 lower dimensions. Could it be that they aim to transform the lower dimensions into a superworld capable of rivaling the Great Thousand Worlds or the extraterritorial worlds? If all lower dimensions were to merge, the newly created world would certainly rival the other 2 worlds in strength. Yu Xiaojiang's words sent shockwaves through everyone present. If his hypothesis was correct, it signified an unparalleled plan. Until now, they had believed the extraterritorial evil clan's relentless assault on the lower dimensions, seizing the dimension embryos, was a strategy to use the lower dimensions as a stepping stone for a pincer attack on the Great Thousand Worlds. That plan alone was terrifying. But the scenario Yu Xiaojiang described was even more horrifying. Was the extraterritorial evil clan truly attempting to merge all lower dimensions and create a world that, in terms of strength, would rival the Great Thousand Worlds and the extraterritorial worlds? If such a world succeeded, it would no longer be a lower dimension. It would become a second Great Thousand World, or perhaps a second extraterritorial world, given that it would be under the control of the extraterritorial evil clan. This was undoubtedly a new world creation plan. With two great worlds in its grasp, the extraterritorial evil clan's power could double over time. At that point, annihilating the Great Thousand Worlds would be effortless. Even if, as in ages past, 10 mighty warriors emerged to challenge them, the extraterritorial evil clan would have the reserves to utterly crush them. At that point, all three worlds, including the Great Thousand Worlds, would fall under the dominion of the extraterritorial evil clan. The leaders of the various alliances were profoundly shaken. None had expected the extraterritorial evil clan's ambitions to reach such terrifying heights. No wonder Yuan Chang had earlier linked the fusion of two lower dimensions to the survival of the three worlds, including the Great Thousand Worlds. If Yu Xiaojiang's hypothesis held true, Yuan Chang's warnings were far from exaggerated. Yet just as everyone thought they had uncovered the evil clan's ultimate plan, Yuan Chang shook his head with a faint, knowing smile. His calm words echoed through the space. If I were the demon ancestor of the extraterritorial evil clan and heard this plan, I'd simply say, even if we conquered all three worlds, what's the point? The gathered alliance leaders, still immersed in the magnitude of their realization, froze. Their pupils contracted sharply as their astonishment transformed into a cloud of doubt hanging over their heads. Could it be that the extraterritorial evil clan's goal wasn't merely to conquer the three worlds? What could surpass such a grandiose plan? Simultaneously, they turned their attention to Wei Tiandi, who stood tall before Yuan Chang, and the four individuals from the Great Thousand Alliance who had been selected to stand behind him. If the evil clan's sole goal was to merge the lower dimensions, why would Yuan Chang insist on involving a heavenly supreme, along with individuals at the spirit movement, spirit wheel, divine soul, and heaven-merging stages, in his plans? Yu Xiaojiang stared at Yuan Chang with a heavy expression. Yet Yuan Chang merely smiled cryptically. What exactly are you trying to say? Thousands of colossal stone pillars, each 10,000 zhang tall, supported the sky continent. This unique continent, constructed millennia ago by 10 Earth Supreme experts and one Heavenly Supreme, was both grand and distinctive. At the continent's center, an immense light barrier spanning 1,000,000 li descended. Within it lay a winding mountain range, currently hosting nearly 10 figures, each a figure of such magnitude that their presence alone could shake the Great Thousand Worlds. From the Western Heaven Palace came the 100-Battle Emperor, Shui Yuan. From the Sword Domain came its Domain Lord, the Azure-Robed Sword Saint, Lu Feng. From the Guardian Realm came its Realm Lord, the Protector of the Heavens, Wei Tiandi. From the Divine Realm came its representative, Tang, who bore the titles of Sea God and Azure God. From the Sacred Alliance came its leader, the Ancient Saint, Shangyu. From the Land of 10,000 Graves came its caretaker, the Undying Lord. And finally, presiding over them all was the leader of the Great Thousand Alliance, Nan Tianzi. The meeting they were convening concerned the very future of the three worlds. Are you suggesting that the fusion of two lower dimensions by the extraterritorial evil clan is not to create another great world as a means of attacking the Great Thousand Worlds? Yu Xiaojiang questioned. I never said that, Yuan Chang replied. You could see it as one of their objectives, but it's not their ultimate goal. After all, ruling over the Great Thousand Worlds and the lower dimensions would only expand their territory threefold. What kind of experiment are you planning to conduct? Yu Xiaojiang asked, his gaze shifting between Wei Tiandi, who stood before Yuan Chang, and the four figures behind him. He was well aware that the experiment Yuan Chang intended to carry out might be intricately linked to the ultimate objective of the extraterritorial evil clan. No rush, we have time. You didn't finish your earlier point, go on. Why do you think the Great Thousand Worlds has no shackles? Yuan Chang replied to Yu Xiaojiang. The term, dimensional shackles, is commonly known to have originated from the lower dimensions. Most people today associate these shackles exclusively with the lower dimensions. Therefore, breaking through the shackles typically refers to overcoming the limitations of a small world to reach the great thousand worlds. In essence, breaking the shackles of the lower dimensions means transcending the constraints of smaller worlds and entering a larger one, Yu Xiaojiang explained, continuing his unfinished thought. So, if we reinterpret this concept, breaking the shackles of the great thousand worlds would imply transcending its constraints to enter an even larger world. Yu Xiaojiang's explanation earned applause from Yuan Cheng, who clearly agreed with his perspective. You're onto something. Keep going. You might just uncover the true purpose of the extraterritorial evil clan. However, Yu Xiaojiang's next statement left everyone stunned, except for Yuan Cheng, who appeared unsurprised, as if he had anticipated this response. But based on the information I've gathered, there is no larger world beyond the great thousand worlds, Yu Xiaojiang declared. And how can you be certain there isn't a higher realm beyond the great thousand worlds? Yuan Cheng asked, a hint of amusement in his smile. Because heavenly supreme powerhouses represent the pinnacle of the great thousand worlds, just as the heavenly emperors are the ultimate limit in the extraterritorial worlds. If my earlier theory holds true, then a fused lower dimension would also have a limit comparable to the heavenly supreme or heavenly emperor level, Yu Xiaojiang replied. Hearing this, the undying lord and others fell silent. As mid to late stage heavenly supreme experts, they could vaguely sense that the only level above them was the peak of the heavenly supreme realm. Beyond that, they felt no further breakthrough was possible. This sense was strongest in the undying lord, who had been at the late stage of the heavenly supreme realm for millennia. But feelings remained feelings, and they all knew that the peak of the heavenly supreme realm was not the true final boundary. There existed a realm far beyond the heavenly supreme level. There were even legends of individuals who had reached this realm. In the primordial divine clan and myriad spirit divine clan, it was said that an ancient fossil-like being from the primordial era had survived to this day, surpassing the heavenly supreme level. Similarly, in the extraterritorial evil clan, the surviving primordial demon ancestor and two other ancient beings were rumored to have transcended the heavenly supreme level. What lies beyond the heavenly supreme realm? Even these super-powerful figures, who had touched the peak of the heavenly supreme realm, could not fathom it, for they had not yet reached that level. You might be thinking of those rare fossil-like figures within the extraterritorial evil clan and the primordial divine clan, Yu Xiaojiang said, seemingly reading the thoughts of everyone present. Yes, they have indeed surpassed the barrier and achieved a realm beyond the heavenly supreme level. In ancient legends, the Great Thousand Worlds is said to have a breakthrough rule known as supreme sovereignty. It's likely that these ancient beings embody that concept. However, as you all have observed, surpassing the heavenly supreme level should theoretically allow one to break through the shackles of the three great worlds. Yet, these ancient beings, despite their transcendence, have not broken free from these shackles. They merely possess the ability to traverse any corner of the three great worlds freely. It's akin to a lower dimension powerhouse who reaches a level equivalent to the three minor tribulation stage of the Great Thousand Worlds. Breaking through the three minor tribulations allows one to reach a level comparable to the supreme stage and escape the lower dimension to enter the Great Thousand Worlds. But in this scenario, the powerhouse transcends the lower dimension's limits, reaches the supreme stage, yet inexplicably remains trapped within the lower dimension. So my conclusion is simple. The shackles of the three great worlds do not exist. When Yu Xiaojiang's conclusion reverberated through the room, everyone froze. These theorists were truly terrifying, capable of deriving shocking truths from details most would overlook. Yuan Cheng, however, remained inscrutable. As for the heavenly supreme experts present, they realized that at best, they could serve as enforcers for someone like Yuan Cheng. No wonder the extraterritorial evil clan was so intent on eliminating Yuan Cheng. Even so, the leaders of the major alliances could not believe that this alone justified placing Yuan Cheng at the top of their kill list. Based on your theory, I also believe the shackles of the three great worlds do not exist, Yuan Cheng said after listening to Yu Xiaojiang's explanation. What is it? Yu Xiaojiang immediately asked in confusion upon hearing this. Do you know why the lower dimensions can never surpass the Great Thousand Worlds? Yuan Cheng asked. I already explained this quite clearly just now. Based on my theory, if the lower dimensions could merge into a single great world, they would no longer be unable to surpass the Great Thousand Worlds. However, because the lower dimensions exist in countless fragmented forms, the originally abundant resources are divided into innumerable portions. Each lower dimension only possesses a fraction of the total resources. Among these fragments, some lower dimensions have slightly more, and some have slightly less. Due to the uneven distribution of resources, the numerous lower dimensions are classified into low, mid, and high tiers, Yu Xiaojiang explained. Do you really think it's just a matter of uneven resource distribution? Yuan Cheng narrowed his eyes slightly and then sighed softly. You've made your point, but allow me to fill in the gaps in your logic. There are gaps? Yu Xiaojiang was clearly unaware of any flaws in his earlier explanation. Around them, the masters of various alliances remained silent, quietly listening to Yuan Cheng's analysis. Setting aside the chaotic resource issue, let's return to what I initially mentioned about the problem of dimensional shackles. Yuan Cheng raised his voice. Here's a phenomenon that nearly everyone knows. In the countless lower dimensions, due to variations in the strength of their dimensional shackles, these worlds are divided into 3 or more levels. Generally, a world where the heaven merging stage is enough to break through its shackles is considered a low-tier dimension. A world requiring heaven transformation stage strength to break its shackles is mid-tier, and above that, dimensions where the heaven-reaching stage is needed are high-tier. As for super dimensions, their shackles are equivalent to the supreme stage in the Great Thousand Worlds. According to my reflective shadow theory, there are 10 of the most elite super dimensions within the lower dimensions. To break through their shackles, one needs power comparable to an Earth Supreme. Yu Xiaojiang also mentioned earlier that the limits and shackles of the Great Thousand Worlds do not align, so shackles do not exist there. We will discuss that later. According to Yu Xiaojiang, the uneven strength of dimensional shackles is due to uneven resource distribution. However, I can unequivocally say that this conclusion is utterly wrong. Breaking this theory is quite simple. Take resources sufficient to cultivate an Earth Supreme powerhouse and pour them into a low-tier dimension. Let the natural progression unfold. Do you think that low-tier dimension would rapidly elevate to stand alongside the 10 elite super dimensions? If it could, I think we'd already have the means to transform hundreds of low-tier dimensions into super dimensions, Yuan Cheng said. That wouldn't work, Wei Tiandi remarked. Resources are essentially energy. A resource-rich world is a world with denser energy. While higher-tier dimensions indeed possess energy that is several times denser than that of low-tier dimensions, I believe that energy density is not the main determinant of a dimension's level. About a decade ago, a Guardian Realm Elder at the Earth Supreme level was on a mission in a lower dimension when he encountered a dimension under attack by the extraterritorial evil clan. Because the Elder was preoccupied, he couldn't personally intervene to repel the attackers. Instead, he came up with a solution. He infused that dimension with vast amounts of heaven and earth energy, allowing its inhabitants to absorb this energy and use it to fend off the evil clan branch. According to Yu Xiaojiang's resource theory, that dimension, after being infused with such massive amounts of heaven and earth energy, should have become more advanced, and its shackles should have risen accordingly. But in reality, its shackles remained at the heaven transformation stage, just as they had been before. The only difference was that its inhabitants, borrowing that energy, achieved the heaven transformation stage more quickly, Wei Tiandi concluded. Upon hearing this, the crowd nodded in agreement. If this were the case, Yu Xiaojiang's theory of resource distribution could not be completely dismissed, but it was already showing flaws Yu Xiaojiang himself now acknowledged. So what's your view on dimensional shackles, Brother Yuan Cheng? The Undying Lord asked. If the resource distribution theory doesn't hold, then we're left with a question, Yuan Cheng said with interest. My hypothesis cannot be proven merely through explanation. That's why I said from the beginning that an experiment is necessary. What kind of experiment? I've long been prepared to act as test subject number 1, Wei Tiandi said with a smile. We await your instructions, said the 4 individuals standing behind Yuan Cheng.